Good evening. On behalf of the commissioners and staff, I would like to welcome you to the April 22nd, 2025 City of Roseville Public Utilities Commission meeting. This 7-member commission is responsible for studying and advising the City Council regarding all utilities owned or operated by the city, including electric, water, wastewater, and solid waste. The Public Utilities Commission advises the City Council regarding planning, rates, public information, cable television franchises, and other matters relating to such enterprises, and may also hear citizen complaints as to operation or rates. The Public Utilities Commission also advises the City Council regarding the activities of such joint powers agencies as the city may be a member of or which relate to such utility enterprises. At this time, I'd like to ask that everyone please put your electronic devices on silent. Okay. Kara, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner DeLacy?
Here.
Commissioner DeMarkey?
Here.
Commissioner Knox?
Here.
Commissioner Maish?
Here.
Commissioner Springer?
Here.
Commissioner Webb? Here. And Chair Bielski?
Here. Commissioner DeLacy, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I sure will. Fellow commissioners and guests, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public comments. Item 4 on the agenda is public comments. This item is for anyone who would like to address the commission on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. When addressing the commission, please state your first and last name for the record. All right, we have no one. All right. Approval of the minutes. Item 5.1 is approval of the March 25th meeting minutes. Do any of the commissioners have any suggested corrections or clarifications to the minutes at this time? No. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes? May I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Abstention.
We weren't here.
We have 2 abstentions. Okay. Next on the agenda is requests and presentations. Item 6.1, Roseville Electric Utility Monthly Update. Report by Chief Executive Officer Dan Beans, summarizing the monthly status of electric utility activities for information. Good evening, Dan.
Evening. Good evening, Chair Bielski and commissioners. So we've had quite a few amazing things happening over the past month. One of them, as you know, was the Line Workers Rodeo that we hosted here in Roseville. We had an incredible amount of participation from across the country and locally. We had, between the Friday night and Saturday of the actual rodeo, we had almost 10,000 people at those events, about 7,500 on Saturday for the main rodeo. So that was a fantastic event. Some people have asked, hey, when are we, are we doing it again next year or another time? And that really was a one-off opportunity for us to do. Unlikely we would have it anytime soon, if ever. So it was a great event, great community support. A lot of city staff helped. And I just can't thank everybody enough for all of that. So pretty amazing event. Another event we just held was the Earth Night. And I hear, oh, you have a question?
Did the city of Roseville win anything?
Did we win anything at the rodeo? Oh, we normally win every rodeo. But this year we focused on hosting a great rodeo. And our neighbors to the north or whatever to the other way from, anyway, next door, they won a lot. So SMUD did a great job. They had a great showing. I believe they won 11 awards. They brought 6 teams. And last year it was in Lafayette, Louisiana. Roseville did take home a trophy, and I may have rubbed it in SMUD's face a little too much. They didn't get anything, and I think this was payback. But you know what? All's fair. It was a great event, and
It was.
anyway, very friendly competition. So, any other questions about the rodeo? So we will be bringing a economic study on the actual impact. We did a preliminary one on what it could be, and I believe the numbers was between $2 and $2.5 million of economic impact for the community, and that was based on a lower number of attendance. So we expect that to go up. So we'll bring that back when that's done. Earth Night was held, I think, over at Wood Creek, and there was over 800 people attending that, so that's amazing. As many of you know, you went to the tour of REP. We had a unit down, and those repairs are now complete. And so that unit is operational, so we're back in full swing. This fall, some of you who didn't make it to the out to the tour, or others who want to see it again, this fall we should be breaking open the steam turbine, which is like a 1 in 10 year deal. So I'll make sure Kara reaches out and schedules with you if you want to come out and see what that looks like. So that'll be another cool opportunity. And then speaking of power plants, RPP2, which is our other power plant just outside the city limits, we got council approval last meeting to all the agreements that we have with the California Department of Water Resources and the EPC contractor, the engineer, procurer, construct contractor. So they'll be working on that. That all got signed off. So if everything goes as planned, October we'll start dismantling the current RPP2, and by June
Yeah, June 1, it's supposed to be online, commercial operation.
2020, yeah, so just a few month project, and boom, we'll have a cleaner, more responsive, newer, very new plant out at RPP2. So that is a really big deal. Is another very unique opportunity. Roseville seems to be catching these unique opportunities and making really good things out of them for the community. So yeah, I'll take those are some of the big things. I'll take any questions on any of that.
No questions.
One question.
Yeah.
Did you, you may have mentioned this last time, did you find I know there was dispute over who was at fault for that,
Oh, yes.
has that been resolved?
I don't believe the final report's out.
Yeah, there's no final report. There's some suspicion as to the mode of failure. Do believe it happened during the startup of the unit.
Programming of that PLC that's driving the,
It's
unit?
it's likely that the variable frequency drive that's controlling the start motor held it out from reaching full speed. But there's some other extenuating factors there that are in place, though, that we're not really sure on which was the actual cause. But
we have insurance coverage, I believe, and so we're working through what all that looks like.
Good.
Any other questions? Does anyone from the public wish to address the commission or staff on this item? All right. Okay. Looks like no further questions. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6.2, Roseville Electric Reliability Overview. Presentation by Assistant Electric Utility Chris Porter with an overview of Roseville reliability. For information, Chris.
good evening, commissioners. Here tonight to talk to you about the reliability of our system, specifically the 2024 metrics, and kind of a look back at everything we do to get there. So next slide. This is a kind of overview of what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to kind of go through what reliability is, what our performance is, what the causes of the outages are, and what we do to prevent those. Next slide. Yeah. Okay, so first off, I'm going to reiterate what reliability means. And for us, it means the ability of an electric power system to withstand various conditions while delivering safe and consistent electric service to customers. Measure this. There's two key factors that we use to measure the performance of our system. The first is outage frequency, and that's how often everybody in our system experiences a power outage. And the second item is when they do experience an outage, the average outage duration for all customers for outages. So outage frequency, so here we're comparing to the other municipal utilities that are kind of in our closest sphere of influence. And so here we have Roseville, Smud, and Reading. As you can see, in this scenario, a bigger number's better. So for 2024, we just finished our rolling our numbers up, so we haven't received numbers yet from Reading and SMUD to put on the chart for 2024. But for 2024, our customers experienced the outage frequency would indicate that they would experience an outage once every 4.3 years. And if you look at the averages over the time identified on this particular chart, the Roseville average in this 5-year span is customers experience an outage once every 6.5 years, versus SMUD's average on this chart would be once a year, and Reading once every 3 years. The other indice that we look at is how long a customer is out of power for. This is on average for all customers, so this isn't specific to the outages. This is just on average how long is a customer out of power in a given year. And as you can see here, go back a slide. As you can see here, in this scenario, lower is better. That indicates a shorter time of people being out of power. Averages on this slide, Roseville's average outage duration for customers is 20 minutes versus SMUD of 60 minutes and Reading at 43 minutes. So then we also take a look at what causes outages. This pie chart isn't representative of our system. This is representative of all respondents to the what we use as the APPA's e-reliability tracker tool. So utilities across the country put their data into this particular database, and this is the kind of the distribution of causes of outages for all across the nation for customers that participate. And so just wanted to put this up to contrast to where we see issues. And so you can see for most people, weather, wildlife, and vegetation is the main cause of outages. Not so much for us. Our numbers really, our largest outages are equipment failure, so this is typically due to end-of-life equipment. A lot of equipment doesn't get replaced until it fails, and so 43% of our outages are due to equipment failure, and 21% to weather. That obviously changes year to year depending on the storms we get. And then the 20% of our outages actually is from vehicle accidents, from vehicles impacting our equipment. So I want to highlight a couple major events we had in 2024. Back in February 2024, we had a major storm event that had high winds. We had a number of customers out, a number of outages going simultaneously, but I want to talk a little bit about the longest duration outage for customers in that during that storm. During that storm, we had customers on Taylor Road and Plummer Way out of power for almost 3 days. Not typical for us. Cause of the outage was the poles had failed due to the wind. In this case, these were actually PG&E poles that we're a tenant on. So, the PG&E has transmission on the top of the pole, and we have our 12 kV distribution circuit as a joint pole, as a tenant on those poles of theirs. So unfortunately, in a scenario where we don't own the pole, that means we don't get to replace the pole. So we don't get to dictate the work in its priority. And due to that, and given the unfortunate location of this in our system, as the very extremity of our system, we have no way to feed these customers from any other direction than waiting for those poles to get replaced. And so once PG&E replaced the poles, then our guys were able to go in and rebuild our distribution circuit on that line. And so that was the reason why that took so long. Other kind of outages throughout the year, more typical stuff. We have, due to all the construction out in the west area of town, as you can see, we have construction vehicles that hit our stationary equipment. That definitely causes issues for us. And then other things are car versus pole. We usually have a couple of those a year. And then on the far right, you can see a tree branch that fell into a power line. So what do we do to mitigate some of these things and make sure we keep our reliability numbers high? First one is routine substation maintenance and inspection. We do maintain all of the major equipment in our substations once every 6 years. I talked about equipment failure being one of the major causes of outages. We do proactively identify aged cable on the ground to try to find use statistics to look to see what types of cables are having problems. Like, is it a certain manufacturer? Is it a certain year of install? by and large, these cables can be good for anywhere from 25 to 50 years. So we don't have a hard number that, at 25 years we replace them, but we do look for trends to find cables to replace, because a lot of times the cables, could have, if you have a cable fault, you could lose 2,000 customers. So we do put effort into replacing those cables before they fail. And in the next 5 years, we have almost $10 million of funding proposed to do that. We also do routine inspections of field equipment. Per General Order 165, which is a CPUC order that we follow, we do a visual inspection on all of our distribution equipment annually. And we do a detailed inspection every 5 years. In addition to the detailed inspection on our wood poles, we do testing to test the integrity of the pole to see what kind of condition it's in. And if they've degraded enough, then we do replace them. We do proactive tree trimming. We do go above and beyond the requirements on tree trimming. We're only required to trim trees within 18 inches of our 12 kV and 4 feet of our 60 kV. But we do trim all of our overhead lines within 10 feet, regardless of voltage. And additionally, we're on a cycle of 3 years for trimming trees. So every tree gets basically trimmed every 3 years. And then annually we prepare a summer preparedness plan that identifies and addresses potential issues and identifies plans to deal with extreme conditions. The other way we keep our reliability high is based on our reliable system design. Currently, we have a 86% underground system. Underground systems are much more hardened against weather conditions, which end up being one of our major causes of outages. All of our new equipment is designed with underground lines so that our number goes up slightly every year as we build out the west side of town. We also, as we design stuff, we don't design a circuit or any piece of equipment just to serve exactly what the load's going to be at that point in time. We do look into the future to see what we believe the load could be, and then we have margin on top of that as we design equipment. So it's got a lot more headroom. So if you, for instance, load a piece of equipment at 100%, it's going to fail a lot quicker than if you only load it at 50 or 60%. And it does give us additional flexibility when we talk about new development too. One of the major contributors to keeping our outage times low is the majority of our customers have the ability to be fed from multiple sources. So if you see a card that hits a switch, typically hitting that switch, the replacement of that switch is not when customers come back in power. Typically, we can restore those customers well in advance of that piece of equipment being replaced because they have the ability to be fed from another source. And our high voltage system, our 60 kV system, is also what we call networked. So our substations have multiple sources of feeds to them. So if you lose any one line, the substation doesn't go offline, which could impact a large number of customers if we lose a substation. Also, we have very highly skilled first responders and field crews. As soon as an outage notification comes in, if we don't have 24-hour dispatch, but we do monitor 24 hours a day, dispatchers respond immediately, and at the same time, we do start rolling field crews to respond to the issue as well in the field. And in 2024, our average response time to outages was 37 minutes. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Yeah.
So your cable, is it direct buried or is it placed in conduit?
But, yep.
Okay.
I believe we've replaced all the, we never had a lot of direct buried cable, but I do believe we have replaced all of it or the majority of it. There's some areas where you have to take outages on customers to do it, and some of it hasn't been replaced, but I do believe we have replaced it all by now.
How deep do you go with your cables on the average?
Average depth of a trench is we're usually at the bottom of the trench. We're in a joint trench with other utilities, and we're the one at the bottom. So the bottom of the trench is about 5 feet deep.
Okay, all right.
Would it be worthwhile or just not cost effective or not feasible to separate from PG&E where we share poles?
The challenge would be the easement, having the space to do such.
And they own the easement, I take it.
Yeah, it would still be, if it's a public utility, if it's a utility easement, we'd likely be able to do something in it. At It's a feasibility. I don't know if we have looked too deep into the options to harden that area. There might be some options over there to provide a source from another side with some extra work. We'd have to probably obtain an easement to do that work. Shouldn't be overly challenging if we wanted to use underground construction to get an easement. Typically, that's not met with the resistance of getting an overhead line.
Yeah, okay. And then, and you heard me, I've been here 24 years, but other than the big storm, the only two outages I remember were a clump of Mylar balloons from a birthday party hit a transformer, and that put us all out over where I live. Did they ban Mylar balloons, or are they still?
Still around.
I don't recall. Are they outlawed by a certain date, or is it just in certain areas? Or has just been proposed? I can't remember.
That's still a factor? I mean, can that still?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a factor.
And then the other thing was somebody ran over a above-ground box at Starbucks pulling out of the drive-through. That's the only two times I can recall losing power.
It's rare.
Than the big
It's rare.
storm.
Do you have insurance investigators to go after people that hit the telephone poles or the boxes?
Yeah. We do file claims, and the combination between our risk department, we do look to seek compensation for those accidents. Yes.
In the older parts of town, do we have a program of trying to underground lines that were built in the days when they put them overhead?
No longer. At one time, we did have an overhead to underground conversion program, and I think it was actually required. Was it required by law for a period of time? There was a period of time where it was a thing that I think we, in some fashion, were required to do, or we thought we were going to be required to do it. But we do not have a program for that.
Too expensive.
It's not. It's very cost prohibitive.
The other thing I wanted to say is these numbers are really impressive.
Yeah.
Excellent job.
Like, even with the little higher susceptibility of the overhead construction, given the multiple feeds, our quick response time, our ability to get there and get it fixed fast, the cost-benefit analysis would be tough to justify doing the underground.
Yes, that's my only thing, because on Kirby, there's that big wide strip there, and the lines are overhead. I thought, there's all kinds of room, but is there the option? Can assessment districts be formed, or is that not I know in other areas, like business, like Citrus Heights, for example, where they're doing on the boulevards.
I think that's always an option. If a group of businesses or homes or
homeowners wanna
neighborhoods
get
wanted to
together
do
and
it,
do it, yeah.
when
But
they
a lot
when they
of
saw
money.
the estimate, they might not want to do it. But yeah.
Expensive.
The quick answer, Mylar balloons, they need to meet certain safety standards by 2027, or if they don't meet those standards, they're not allowed for sale in California by 2031.
Wow.
Way out there.
Well, 847.
All right, any other questions or comments from staff?
There's a overhead pole line along Westbrook. Is that a 60 kV?
If it would be 60 kV. We do have 60 kV running up Westbrook.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to come forth and address this issue? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Really good. That was great.
Okay, item 6.3, Environmental Utilities Monthly Update, report by Environmental Utilities Assistant Director Devin Whittington, summarizing the monthly status of environmental utilities activities for information.
Good evening, Commissioners. So I have a few updates here. So what I want to talk about is I heard, working in older neighborhoods. So one of the items we're working on right now is in the Duranta and Atkinson area. We're actually upsizing some of our sewer infrastructure, and that's part of our rehabilitation model, which Shane will kind of touch on with the rates later. But we're actually upsizing those pipes to 12 inches, and we're using a technology called pipe bursting to do that. So that's where you essentially pull a new HDPE, high-density polyethylene pipe through the existing infrastructure, which is either clay, and it expands within it, and then it increases the size of the infrastructure. It's pretty cool technology to go watch and look at, and that'll be impacting that neighborhood for the next couple of months. We're also in the initial phases, or kind of the mid phases, of some work that we need to do on Kirby. That's going to cause some significant traffic issues. It's going to be west of west of Riverside, where Riverside comes in. We had a sinkhole about 2 years over there, or 2 years ago, and we need to go back in and excavate that out and make sure that we don't have any, air back gaps in there. And we're going to replace the water line that's in that area and repave the road. So 2026 is the time frame we're looking on that. I just kind of want to get ahead of that with everybody because I know we're going to have a lot of questions being asked when we start that construction work. And then lastly, we've been partnering with Arcona for the past few years on cleanup events, and we've held 2 of them thus far. And each one of these cleanup events has had an excess of 40 tons of material that we've collected at these. So they've become really popular. Folks are starting to use them a lot. The next event will be on May 17th at St. John's Church over off of Pleasant Grove Boulevard, if you're familiar with that area. It's across from like the Mojos and kind of the 747 restaurant that's over there. And with that, that's the updates that I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Questions from the commission? Anyone from the public like to come forward and ask a question? All right. Okay, so the next item is item 6.4. This is the environmental utilities proposed rate case. Presentation by Environmental Utilities Business Service Manager Shane Whittington on environmental utilities proposed rate adjustments for recommendation. Okay. Shane.
Yeah, thank you. So just jumping straight into it, as mentioned, I'll be talking about the proposed rate adjustments. I'm Shane Whittington, Business Services Manager, and Devin's here for moral support. And just jumping straight into it, what we have on this first slide is an infographic that really tries to explain the complexities around setting rates. But the way I like to simplify things is rate setting is really an exercise in balancing service affordability with service reliability. And touching on that affordability piece, on the call-outs on the side there, you'll see that we've obtained something like $37 million in grant revenues. And like everyone else with economic uncertainty right now, we're tightening our belts, and we've identified $2 million in budget reductions that will contribute to affordability. And so tightening our belt where we can without affecting service reliability. And what this really has resulted in is in us being able to ask for 3 or 4% rate increases instead of 5, 6, or 7% rate increases. And then over the next 4 or so slides, I have different looks of the rate increase. And the most straightforward one is this. So here we have a stacked bar graph that shows the different rates for the different utilities that we're seeking rate adjustments for. And really what it amounts to is something like a $5 increase in both fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. And that comes out to about a 3% increase for the average residential bill. Just to give you a gauge of reasonability, this is not the end-all be-all, but the dotted blue line there indicates what the overall CPI is. The dotted black line is the CPI specific for utilities. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics actually tracks CPI specific for utilities. And then each of those bars indicates what we're requesting for rate adjustments for those specific utilities. So again, not the end-all be-all, but it is a gauge of reasonability, and we feel like this is a fair ask because it falls within that range. Another gauge of reasonability is regional average, so just making sure that we're in line with our comparators. And the long and the short of it is, yes, we're still pretty affordable relative to our neighbors. So just to break down this graph a little bit more, the dark blue bar is what the current average residential bill is. That light blue-gray in the middle there is what we're proposing. And the blue bar to the right is what the regional average is. And then one more look of the reasonability of this rate adjustment ask is this gauge of service affordability that is actually conducted by the American Water Works Association for water and wastewater specifically. So again, just to break down these graphs a little bit more, that light blue dotted line is what AWWA classifies as, in quotes, most affordable. And really what that represents is the amount of the bill, amount of the bill represented as a percentage of median income. And that light blue bar reflects the number of, that is the 25th percentile of all surveyed jurisdictions and providers from AWWA. So in general, we're in the bottom quartile in terms of how much of household income goes towards utilities, meaning that it's more affordable than 75% of our comparators. And then for these last few slides, I really want to touch on what these rates pay for and the service that you get for the rates that are paid. So for the water utility specifically, we're looking at something like annually 10.1 billion gallons of water treated, something like 715 miles of water main maintained. And then what that comes out to for the average residential customer is about half a cent per gallon. And an imperfect analogy, but good for frame of reference, if you were to buy a gallon of water from your local grocer, that's something like $1.29 per gallon. And then similarly for wastewater, again, just to give you a reference for what these rates are paying for, something like 7.3 billion gallons of wastewater treated, something like 900 miles of underground infrastructure maintained. And again, imperfect analogies, but on average, it's about 3 cents per flush for the typical residential customer. And anecdotally, that comes out to about $2 per use if you were to rent a porta potty. And last but not least, our waste services utility. And again, just for frame of reference, something like 268 million pounds of trash collected annually, something like 4.2 million curbside pickups. And for the average residential customer, it's something like $8.50 per pickup. And then again, for frame of reference, that if a customer were to self-haul to the landfill, that would be something like $44 per trip. And the very last thing I wanted to touch on is our remaining timeline. So probably the two things of note are the public meeting this Thursday, which is going to be conducted virtually. And the link to that can actually be found at roseville.ca.us/EU rates. And then we also have the public hearing and the first reading to council on May 21st. And then I think with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from Commission?
I do. When will this actually take effect?
Yeah, absolutely. I probably should have mentioned that. So July 1st, 2025 is for the first increase, and then what we're actually bringing to council is approval of 2 years. So again, another 3 to 4% increase depending on the utility, July 1st, 2026.
Okay, and I see you mentioned residential customers. What about commercial customers?
So generally, it'll be roughly the same, but because commercial customers' usage and subscriptions vary so widely, it's hard to drill into an average commercial customer. So roughly the same in the 3 to 4% range. But if there are specific commercial customers that have questions about how their bill will be impacted, we're happy to field those on an individual basis.
Yes.
So the waste services is a 3% increase proposed, but we just went through a big rigmarole about, our joint use with the county and the MRF upgrades. I would have thought that it would be more. I mean, aren't we engaged in a big upgrade in the materials recovery facility in order to take the organics out, and so I'm surprised it's low. Can you tell me why it's so easy to have such a hard time?
I think the short answer there is we don't want to over-calibrate So that's the reason why we do rate increases on a 2-year basis. And so chances are, as we get closer to the implementation of organics diversion and things like that, there will be a slightly larger increase. But we also do have healthy reserves. So by policy, we have something like 90 days of cash on hand for waste services. And then we've been putting away money for rehabilitation specifically. So money for facilities and things that would be required to meet those requirements. So I think that's kind of the short answer, but if you wanted it to be elaborated on a little bit more, I'm sure Devin could speak to that a little bit more.
No, that's good. So I think the answer to my specific question is we haven't quite gotten to the implementation
Yeah.
of the organic diversion yet, and so we're yet to see that impact in rates, if it has an impact.
I think that's a fair assessment.
All right, good, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Okay, is there anyone from the public who'd like to come forth and address the commission on this issue? All right. We will now close public comment. Would anyone like to make a motion recommending that the city council approve the proposed rate adjustments?
I'll move, yes?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a second by Commissioner Maish. And, I'm sorry, we have a motion by Commissioner Maish and a second by Commissioner Webb. And then, Cara, will you please take the roll?
Yes. Okay. Commissioner DeLacy?
Yes.
Commissioner DeMarkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Knox?
Yes.
Commissioner Maish?
Yes.
Commissioner Springer? Commissioner Webb?
Yes.
Chair Bielski?
Yes. The motion recommending approval of the rate adjustment passes. Thank you for the update, Shane and
Thank you.
Dean. Thank you both. Next on the agenda is board member, commissioner, or staff reports. Are there any reports from staff? Question or comments from the commission?
I would just report that Commissioner Webb and I attended the, what is it called? Risk Oversight Committee for the electric utility, and it was quite interesting, very informative for me. I enjoyed it, and as you would expect, things are going well.
Any risks that we need to know about, or?
Well, there's,
The future's hard to predict, but they have futures.
yeah, we were reminded that natural gas and electricity
Don't
are the
mix.
two most volatile commodities around, and so the strategies that staff uses to hedge against unreasonable rate increases that we don't expect were impressive.
Thank you. Good. All right. Does anyone have any items they would like to suggest for future meetings? There's nobody from staff here, but the organic thing does intrigue me, because I'm seeing that's going to be, when the mandates go into effect, talking about risk, there's going to definitely be need to perhaps adjust rates or whatever.
I think so.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Hopefully, this will give us a little bit of a curve to where the increase won't be so bad.
Coming up on our meeting topic calendar, we do have EU legislative updates in May, and then in June, Waste Services is doing an update, so we can certainly make sure that they touch on the SB 1383 organics diversion.
All right, well, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Wow.
That was